Okay, without further ado, we'll kick things off and just introduce your presenters this afternoon. Um, okay, I'm Steve Rayson. I'm the one at the bottom there, as you can probably tell. I'm one of the directors at BuzzSumo. So we've been going for almost getting on for 2 years now. We launched our first paid plan. Last September. So, and I'll take you through a bit of BuzzSumo during the session when we look at content discovery. But I'm joined, really pleased to be joined, as I said, by Shachar from Playbuzz. Shachar, do you want to say a few words of introduction on your role and background?
Yes, please. Thank you. So my name is Shachar, and I'm the VP of Content at Playbuzz. I've been with the company for almost 2 years, pretty much since we launched the product. And thank you, Steve, so much for all the nice words you said about us. And I'll be happy to show you how to use our create engaging content via some interactive formats. Hope it'll be very interesting.
Great, thanks, Satya. So hopefully we've got a good session lined up for you. I'm going to talk first, and then Satya's going to take you through how to improve your content. So I'm going to do the easy bit, and then she's going to do the hard bits, but the most important bit of the session. So, okay, we also
No
have a
pressure.
hashtag. Yeah, no pressure, no pressure. I can sort of minimize my role. Just let Satya do most of the work. We have a hashtag. So if you're on social media, on Twitter, do just hashtag it social skyscraper. That way we can all read and we can all keep up with ideas. And we do like people to share. So just share any ideas, insights, tips. Do share them and we'll try and pull that together afterwards. So do use the hashtag today. Okay, so I say we're really thankful for Brian Dean. Brian came up with a great technique which works really well in terms of really creating link-worthy content. So he called it the skyscraper technique, and the link is there. You can go to the original article that Brian pulled together. But in essence, it had a number of steps to it. I mean, it was really saying, let's find link-worthy content. What's getting linked to out there at the moment? What's really working? And then what's your opportunity to make something even better than something that's link worthy out there at the moment? So can you improve upon something that's already there, do something significantly better, and then reach out to the right people, obviously, to amplify and link through to your content? So it's a nice three-step model. And we've developed, really Playbuzz have a version of the social skyscraper technique, which works in terms of social. And I'll go through why we think that's important. So why do we need it for social? Brian's technique works fantastically well in terms of you're looking at link building, but why do we need to do something specifically around social? And we've got a few ideas around this. I think the first one is that we've got consumers these days who are always on the go. They check their smartphones. People say 43 times a day. I know for myself and my children, I have children in their early 20s, and it's a lot more than 43 times a day, I think. But they also share a lot. They share a lot of content via social media. And I'm really interested about content discovery. And there's definitely a lot of evidence now that people are sharing content and people are discovering content through social media. And this is really a quite significant graph, I think. This is from a company called Parsley. They track a huge range of news and media sites. And what they were finding is that traffic to those news and media sites from Facebook now exceeds from all the Google sites, including Google Search, etc. So Facebook has now taken over in terms of driving traffic to their sites. And this is a very similar chart to Shareaholic. So this is for news and media sites. But Shareaholic looked at 300,000 sites, and they found that Facebook's the single biggest driver of traffic to websites now. Shareaholic's estimate is that about 25% of all traffic to websites is a click-through from Facebook. So social is so critical now. If you want to find your content or get your content found by people, get it discovered, then you really need to be making sure that it appears in people's social feeds. You can obviously pay for that, but one great way of doing that is to make it engaging enough that people actively share it, like it, so it appears in their feeds, it then appears in other people's feeds, etc. So social is really quite critical in terms of the whole social discovery piece and content discovery piece these days. And yeah, just so important, I think, and just quite interesting in terms of that shift. And that shift is continually moving with Facebook growing up on the right-hand side there. So Not surprisingly, the social skyscraper technique really follows what Brian was doing for links, but here we're talking about social content. So we're talking, rather than link-worthy content, we're talking about share-worthy content. And there is a difference. I did a big study with Moz recently, which you can read at your leisure, where we looked at 1 million articles and what got shared, what got linked, etc. And there's quite a difference between something which is share-worthy and something which is link-worthy. Sometimes it gets links, not shares, and vice versa. And I can talk about that at length if you want to go through that. But in essence, find stuff that's share-worthy, find stuff that's really getting shared already, what's doing really well at the moment, and then what's our opportunity to do something even better. So how can we improve on what's there at the moment? And then the third step is, how do we reach out to influencers to actually amplify that content so we get it amplified in social streams? So it's a fairly simple 3-step process. I'm going to take you through the first step, and then I'm going to pass over to Shachar to talk you through how you make stuff even better. But just quickly, in terms of, okay, we've got to start by finding great content. So finding what's share worthy, what's working, and what can we do better. So here I'm looking at, so what content's resonating, what opportunities exist. And so I'm going to take you through how you might use BuzzSumo to find some of that content. And some of the things you might want to look for, these are just suggestions. You may look for lots of different things, but you might just want to see what's the most shared content on a topic, or what's the most shared content for my competitor. What formats are working the best? Is it a list post? Is it a video? Is it a quiz? Are they flip cards? What sort of formats are engaging your audience at the moment? I say look at competitors, always interesting, and be paranoid a little bit about competitors and what they're doing. But also even what's trending today. The trend is definitely your friend if you're on it early enough. If you miss the trend, it's not so good. But if you're on it early, that's great. And it can be very powerful to jump on a trend, and we'll show you some examples of that today. So they're just some of the things that you might want to look for. And the other thing I think is, given that latest data about Facebook, I think you need to find out what content's working on Facebook. How are people amplifying their content and getting it linked to from Facebook? So an extra step I've put in here, and I'm going to show you how you might do that today using a new sort of Facebook tool, so you can see what's really working on Facebook. So there's some of the questions you might want to address. How do you do it? So I'm going to skip out and do a live demo here, which is always a little bit nerve-wracking. So we're going to hope this all works all right. So I'm now going on to my screen here. So, okay, so in BuzzSumo, you can type in any topic. Here I put in Halloween, for example, but you can search for any topic and find the most shared content. So here I can see that the most shared content was, and I've done a specific date range here from October the 6th to October 31st last year. We could do the whole year, but I did just the period up to Halloween last year. Halloween's at the end of October, as you probably know, so it's a little bit early, but we thought we might focus on Halloween today and give you some ideas there. So, for example, Halloween costumes for cats, no surprises, I suppose. They got shared heavily here. But I can filter down on this as well. So I could say, actually, I just do want to see all the content in the last year. Maybe I just want to see the most shared quizzes about Halloween and look at those, or I want to see the most shared recipes about Halloween, might be another thing that I could look for. But I can start to see what got the most shares either last year, last week, or even the last 24 hours, which we'll come on to. So I can see the content that's working, and I know some people are great at getting their content shared. So if I just looked for Playbuzz.com, just put the domain in for Playbuzz, I'll see their most shared content in the last year. And you see what I'm saying here about how good they are here. So we're getting shares here of 3-4 million shares of content. So huge shares here. But I might want to see what did they do, and Shachar can tell me, but what did they do about Halloween? What was some of their most shared content about Halloween? So a nice little quiz on what Halloween candy are you, for example. Do you know your Halloween candy? So using BuzzSumo, you can start to see what's the most shared content for a topic or a competitor's domain or a combination of the two. And we can see if they're getting most shares on Facebook or LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. So we can look through all those things. The other thing we can do with BuzzSumo is see what's trending right now. So if you've not used BuzzSumo's trending content, we'll show you, based on the velocity of shares, the content that's trending right now on the internet. So these are the the top trending stories. But the lovely thing is, by clicking plus, you can create your own custom topics. So yesterday I created a topic for Halloween. And so this will show me today's trending content on Halloween. Now, it's a bit early for Halloween. We're still at the start of October. But we can see there is trending content. So we can see here people who ate Burger King's Black Whopper said it turned their poop green. So almost 40,000 shares today for that particular one. So, and a Star Wars pumpkin. No surprises that Star Wars make it there. So we're early in the season, but we're already seeing trending content. So each day now we can look at this feed and see what's trending about Halloween. And I'll share this feed with you as well. You can share this feed and just get a URL here. Nobody needs to be logged in. I can share this URL and everybody can look at it. So this will show you the most trending content on Halloween for the next month in the run up to Halloween. I can even go a stage further. I could do a piece of content analysis. So I can take any particular topic like Halloween. I could just look for the past 6 months or the past year, and I could run a search, and it would just do a quite detailed piece of analysis of the content for that particular topic in terms of what networks it's shared on, what's the most shared types, etc., what sites are doing well. It takes about a minute to run, so I'll let that run. And while it does that, I'll show you a new feature on BuzzSumo around how you could find Facebook content. Now, this is an exclusive sneak peek, really. This is something we're going to be launching in a month or so, and it'll be probably to our agency users, but I wanted to show you how it works. So what we could do here is type in a topic again. So let's say Halloween. And this time what this will show us is the most interacted with content with posts about Halloween on Facebook. So we can see this one over here. It's a bit scary, but that's 255,000 interactions. This one is on Halloween cupcakes, etc. And I can slice and dice that in different ways. So I can view it a bit like a BuzzSumo feed. So I could say, actually, what was the most shared? And actually, the most shared Facebook post was these Halloween cupcake ideas. And I say it's not even October yet. So I can start to see, what's working for other people when we're looking at Halloween content. I could even just say, I just want to see the past month or whatever period I want to run for. But I can also analyze this. So I can see the monthly interactions, shares, likes, comments for posts about Halloween or with the word Halloween in. And you can see it's really jumped up now. So even in September, we had posts published that had 24 million interactions, and we're not even at Halloween. Already in October, we're at 10 million interactions. So we can see that Halloween's probably a good topic for us to write something about because it's clearly going to go way up here in terms of interactions. People like it. And obviously, we could look at engagement by post type, so questions, videos, etc., to see what's really working. And so, yes, it's a nice little tool. So you could just say, okay, we want to just see what questions are working, for example. And this will come back and just show us posts that are questions because they tend to get a lot of engagement. So, and that might give you ideas. If you're going to come up with questions, these might give you really interesting ideas. So what's your favorite Halloween candy? I'm not sure about Cabbage Patch Dolls, but anyway, this one, which Halloween movie is your favorite, for example? That's already been shared 29,000 times, for example. So that's got a lot more shares than our what's your favorite Halloween candy. So on that side. So you can do this type of analysis just to see what's working at the moment and to give you ideas as to what's working. And we have a free tool called Sumo Rank, and you can already do analysis by page. So we know that the Playbuzz team are fantastic at what they do here. So we could analyze their page and start to see, okay, what's their most engaging posts, for example, what's working for them in terms of either images or videos or questions, etc. So that tool is going to be coming out. It's a bit of a sneak preview. That'll be out in a month or so, and it'll be available on the agency plan. But I think potentially very powerful given the importance of Facebook. If I go back to my content analysis, which is now run, you can see that we found, which is surprising given it was the past 6 months, 13,000 articles on Halloween, an average number of shares. Interestingly, what and why posts were the most shared. So we could dive in and have a look at those. We can see that most shares take place on Facebook, a little bit on Pinterest. You really don't want to be sharing much on LinkedIn, although maybe you think that's an opportunity. You can see shares by date published, by content length, in terms of what's working. And you can also see which domains have had the most shared content on Halloween in the last 6 months, which, as I say, you may want to do it. A better search might be for the period for October last year, so you get a better feel for that. But hopefully that's some ideas that show you just how you might search for what's already good share-worthy content, what's working. The challenge, of course, is how you improve upon that. But hopefully that gives you some ideas about how you might search what's working out there at the moment. So I just flip through, make sure I've covered the ground there. So you look at most shared, you look at the domains getting it right, the content trending today, and I will share that link so you can all look at what's trending on Halloween. And also it's important to look at what's working, because different formats work well for different audiences, or somebody may have covered something really well, but if you do a quiz, because there hasn't been a quiz, that could work well, or you do an infographic. So look at the different format opportunities. But with that, I'm now going to pass over to Shachar, and I'll just do that, and hopefully this will work fine. So it's always risky when you start moving presenters, but I shall now pass over. Sorry, you see me scrolling through. Got so many of you to find the person to give things to. Okay, so I've passed over.
All right, thank you so much for this. I hope you can all see my screen now. And so let's start talking about the second part of our social skyscraper technique, which is creating better content. Now, I know it sounds really intimidating because, we want to create better content, but what does it mean? How do I know that the content that I'm going to create about this topic that is trending is actually better? So what I want to offer is the thought that in this day and age, and what Steve mentioned about how people discover content these days via social media, and how content is consumed these days via mobile devices, and it's constantly disrupted. So basically, creating better content means content that is more engaging, that will keep your audience engaging, will keep their attention for a longer time, and will not only make them engage with the item, but want to pass it on to their friends via their social feeds. So that is what we would like to define as better content, better quality engagement. So how do we ensure that the item that we're creating will be more engaging than other items out there? So the most effective way to make sure that this will happen is using engaging content formats to frame your story. So, the interesting thing is that even though the way we consume content has changed so much in recent years, still most stories on the internet, and, I'm sure you all have a similar experience, it's that most stories on the internet are still told the same way they were told 10 or more years ago, or basically the same way they could have been told in a printed magazine. So we have a text, we have a headline, we have some images, but there is no element in the story that makes it unique for the way content is consumed and discovered today. So basically, if you take your story and you change it up and you serve it in a new and interactive way, it's most likely to get your users excited already and get them engaging with it. So let's look at some aspects of what is it about content interactive formats that makes them so much more engaging. So what I mentioned, the first most basic thing is that it's a new way to tell your story. So if, like I mentioned, most stories are told via some text and some pictures, you're basically offering your audience something new. You're giving them a quiz or a poll or a listicle, something that they're maybe less familiar with, so it's already a better experience for them. But that's not the main thing. What the main thing is, as far as I see it, is that interactive formats keep your users active. So while most content is consumed in a very passive way, you're just looking at text, you're reading it, you're not taking an active part in it. When you're taking a quiz, for example, you're being asked questions, so you're now thinking of what's the answer, or you're being challenged in a trivia quiz and you need to find the right answer. Or if it's a poll, you're voting and saying what's your opinion on a controversial topic. So basically, you are now part of the content. And what we found is that the more the user is part of the content by actively interacting with it, the more likely they are to share it, to pass it forward, to put it on their social feed, which is basically, I think, to most of us, the publicly curated version of the self, the way we want other people to look at us, where we want things we care about to be presented. The third aspect is that especially if we're looking at interactive content formats like the ones we at Playbuzz are offering, is that they're optimized for social consumption. So they will always include a call to action, like share your result or comment. So, and you know, it may be surprising or may not be, but when you present someone with a call to action to do something, they're more likely to actually do it. Also, another thing we do with our formats at Playbuzz is that we constantly test and optimize our share buttons to make sure that they're the right size and the right location, and that people will be they're optimized for high usage, and that's also a very important thing. Make the sharing very comfortable and easy for the user. So you may have heard this in, Steve was talking about this in a recent webinar. So this is a quote from an analysis that was done by BuzzSumo and Moz, where they try to understand what content gets shares versus links by analyzing 1 million articles. And I thought this quote was really relevant to what we're talking about now, because basically one thing that they found was that content formats matter, and formats such as videos and quizzes are far more likely to be shared than linked to, and list posts and videos achieve much higher shares in average. So you can see that, you know, the conclusion, as you can see, is that content formats make a difference. And it's a really great way to ensure that you will have that better content item about a topic that everyone's talking about. So let's look at some quick examples. This is textual version of an item with 7 fascinating facts about Elvis Presley versus a version of the same item created on a Playbuzz format called flip cards, where basically you have an image of Elvis, you click it, and you can read a fact about Elvis on the other side of the picture. And I think just by looking at it, it's quite easy to understand which version your audience will be more drawn to and will remember and want to engage with further. Now, if we're looking at another example, this is we're looking at 2 versions of basically similar, almost the same quiz. One is a non-interactive quiz version, like the ones we used to take in Cosmo back in the day, and the second is specifically a Playbuzz interactive quiz, and this quiz had over 120,000 shares. It was created by a member of our community. So if we look at the non-interactive version of the quiz, we basically, you're probably familiar with this. You have questions, you need to remember what's the answer that fits you, and then at the end you're being asked, so if you pick mostly A's or mostly B's, and that's how you find the result that matches you. And it's not the optimal way to present this type of experience. If we're looking at the engaging version of quiz, and this is this Playbuzz item is embedded here on moviephone.com. We can see that it's a much more interactive experience. You're getting asked a question, you're picking your answer, you're part of it, you're an active participant, you're much more likely to get through to the end of this item. And then if we look at the ending part of this item, which, you know, it's always important for us to make sure that our users reach to the end of the article, because that's when the sharing happens, when I finish the quiz and I get my result. And then you can see in this demo that once I finish the item, like I mentioned, you have a call to action with share buttons that are popping up, and you got, this is your result, and then big share buttons that pop up at the bottom and tell you, invite you to share your result. And we do see very high share rates, and I'll go over the numbers in a second for these formats. So basically, by using interactive formats, you're ensuring a much more engaging experience for your audience, no matter what topic you're dealing with, whether it's news, whether it's entertainment, you know, no matter what it is. It's what you make of it, and it's the formats that you use. And as I mentioned, we see very high completion and share rates for these type of formats. So we prepared this slide that shows some industry benchmarks for engagement with content versus the sort of numbers that we see with websites that are using the Playbuzz platform. So you can see that the average all over the internet would be around 15-second sessions, a completion rate of 22%, meaning only 22% of people in average will scroll all the way down to the end of your article, and a 0.2% share rate. Now, at Playbuzz, we see much longer sessions of 1.5 minutes to even 3 minutes and longer. We had a big hit in the past few weeks that the average engagement time was over 10 minutes. It was a 99-question quiz. We see completion rates that are over 80%, and again, in quizzes specifically, you see very high completion rates. People want to get to the end, they want to get their result, and very high share rates, averaging at between 4 to even 15%, and could even be higher than that. And you can see here in this article that was posted on Digiday, they took months of articles from different websites that have highly shared content, and they checked the average amount of engagements that an article gets on each one of those sites. And you can see that an average article on Playbuzz on the month where they did this test was getting a much higher number of engagements on average versus some other very successful, highly shared websites. So it basically goes to show you that content formats work, and it's a really good way to make sure that your item is better and is more engaging. Another thing I wanted to show you is that when we're talking about engaging formats, it's not just engaging with the item itself. You're starting the engagement from the social post. In this case, I'll show you an example from Facebook, but it could be any social network, basically. So you can see that on the left, we created a poll around a statement that was made by Sarah Palin. It's an item that took us about 10 minutes to create. We posted it on the Playbuzz social Facebook page, and we invited the audience to say what they think and start engaging with the poll from the post itself, and only then clicking and voting in the item. And you can see that thousands of people have interacted with it by liking and sharing, and the post also had thousands of comments and a lot of votes on the poll itself. So the engagement started from the posts on our page, and like Steve showed before, question posts on Facebook are really popular and work really well, and when you use a content format that matches that, then it's the best match. The second example is what I just mentioned. It's a trivia quiz naming 99 movies from the 90s. We basically took one of the screenshots from the quiz and asked on the posts on our page, what movie is this? And people will typically have post thousands of comments on a question like this, and you know, start the interaction there, and it kind of gives them the first step into the item and into clicking it and completing it and engaging with it. It sets the tone for the engagement. And if we're looking, you know, something where everyone is always asking us about is how do we make it scalable? How do we make sure that we can do this at scale and react and respond to a lot of different topics? So another thing that you can do by using our platform, which is, by the way, completely free to use and anyone is welcome to try, is searching for a specific topic that is currently trending, so whether it's Halloween or Republican debate or anything at all, and then finding engaging items on Playbuzz that are already there, that are already working, and adding them into an article that you're working on. So you will be writing your article and adding an engaging element in the article, in the middle or in the end of the article, and thus making it a lot more engaging. Another thing that you can do is use the Playbuzz translation feature if you're working in a different language, and then have a very scalable way of adding engaging content to your site. Now, basically, the next last decision that you need to make in this process is which format should you pick. And that basically depends on the kind of interaction that you want to achieve that best matches your story. So if it's a controversial story, you might want to get people's opinion and get them voting in a poll. Or if you want to challenge them, you might want to create a quiz of some sort. And actually, if we're going to look into, this is the new create page that you can find on playbuzz.com. We actually offer you a list of different types of engagement that you might want to create with your different posts. And by the type of engagement, you can find the formats that will match that engagement. So if you want to make a recommendation to your audience, or make a list, or have them vote, ask their opinion, and so on, you will find the formats that match this type of engagement. So it's a really easy and simple way to get started. So basically, if we go over the stages, and I'm going to go over to a live demo, after we found the relevant trending item that is working well, or topic that is trending, we now want to find the right interactive formats and get people engaging with the item that you're creating. So let me just jump right in to playbuzz.com. And actually, to continue what Steve was talking about with trending Halloween content, so we also went to BuzzSumo and looked for what Halloween content was trending in the past 24 hours. And Steve mentioned this item about the Burger King Whopper that turned people's poop green, a very exciting item that everyone was sharing and talking about. My Facebook feed was all full with this. So this is a really a fun example for us to use, because you know, if I'm looking at this story and I want to say, okay, now I want to create an item that will be very engaging around this topic that everyone's buzzing about right now. So I can just go to Playbuzz and click the Create button, go to our Create page that I just showed you, and think of what type of interaction I want my users to have with this story. So the first thing that may come to mind would be maybe creating a poll that will ask them, will you still be interested in eating this Whopper, even though you know funny things will be waiting for you in the toilet afterwards. So then you basically want to ask your users' opinion or get them to vote, and you can find the poll format, find some examples for what it's going to look like, click the Create button. It's a super simple process of writing your question, picking out the layout that you want to use, whether it's more visual or more textual. And actually, when you look at the list of the items that were trending around this topic, you can see that the second item on the list is a story by Distractify.com, one of the sites that are using the Playbuzz platform. And you can see that they wrote a story about this burger, and they actually added a Playbuzz poll at the bottom. Just like I mentioned now, to ask people, would you still eat the Black Halloween burger from Burger King? And you can see that there are thousands of votes, and it's probably one of the reasons that this item was more engaging than others and made it get to thousands of shares. Now, just to show you the other thing that I mentioned, where you can search any topic on Playbuzz and get engaging content that already exists to add into your own articles. So you can basically go to Playbuzz and search for Halloween, and then see what items are already trending around this topic. It could be any topic, and you can just pick an item that you want to add into your article, click the embed button, copy the code, and use this item as a point of engagement in the article that you're creating. So let me just hand it right back to Steve, and let's hear some more about how to reach out to influencers. All right.
Great, thanks very much for that. That's really, yep, that's working. That's great. Yeah, no, thanks very much for that. I've still got to be doing more. Someone was asking the question about, is this all relevant to B2B? And I can only say for us, we're a B2B company, but engagement to engagement, yes, some consumer topics obviously work in a slightly different way, but we found some of the principles really matter about having calls to action. Sometimes even on Facebook posts, we're learning from the team at Playbuzz, for example, just sometimes asking the question, what's your favorite Halloween movie? It could be for us a different question in B2B, but in terms of, we did one recently, what was your favorite headline, or what headline worked best for you? But asking questions and comments actually gets more feedback. So we're just trying to learn and apply it. I'm not saying all of this will apply to B2B, of course, but we all need to be learning about what works, what engages, and looking at platforms like Facebook, which may be more important to us in the future. But step 3 of our process, so having improved it and created really engaging content, as was shown there, I'm just going to go to the final stage, and I'll flip through this reasonably quickly, but it's an important stage. I think one of the mistakes I see people making again and again is writing and creating great content, but not amplifying it. And my view is there's just too much content out there. People, unfortunately, are not going to just find your content. You really do need to have that content amplified. And you can pay for that, but obviously you can try and get people to share it or to link to it. And our view is a very simple one at one level, is that content's amplified by sharing and linking. If people share it in their Facebook feeds or their LinkedIn feeds, if they link to it, that helps amplify your content. So I think you have to be thinking about from the very early stages of creating your content about how you're going to amplify it and who's going to amplify it. And I just wanted to go through a few points on this, really. The first thing is what an influencer isn't, really, because I think some people just say that person's got loads of followers, so they must be an influencer. Not necessarily, and I'll show you some data that says that's not necessarily the case. An influencer is not necessarily somebody with lots of followers, but they probably are somebody who's very busy because they've got lots of followers, so lots of people may be approaching them. So they may be very busy people. Followers do not equal engagement, and this is really important. So within BuzzSumo, if you know the platform, you can just go to the influencers tab and do a search for the top influencers on any topic, and then you can resort them by various metrics, as you can see here. But if we just look at the 2 down at the bottom here, so there's a person called Martin there. It's got 139,000 followers compared to Susan above him, who's got 6,000. But Susan actually gets an average of 5.6 retweets. So every time she tweets, she gets an average retweet of 5.6, so 5.6 times a retweet, whereas Martin's only getting 1. So sometimes people gather big audiences, but they're not that engaged. Sometimes you can find somebody with a really small but very engaged audience who really has an active following, people who reshare their stuff, and so actually they can share it quite a bit. So followers don't necessarily equal engagement. And the more followers you have, that can often be the case in my experience. So to me, what an influencer is, this is a superhero, reach, but an influencer is somebody who's got an engaged audience in an area that clearly matters to you and your product or service. They could be an influencer about social media, but that's so general. Is it relevant to you? So to me, what you're trying to do is find people with an engaged audience that matters to you and your product and your service. And I think there are just a number of ways you can do this. So I think which influencers will amplify your content. And I'm just going to run through very quickly just 8 ways you could find influencers that might be useful to reach out to amplify your content. There are lots and lots more. The first thing is if you go into BuzzSumo and you type in a topic, so here it's content marketing, we'll show the most shared content as we were showing earlier. But if you're a pro customer of BuzzSumo, or if you do the 14-day free trial, you get all the features, but you can click view sharers and that will show you who shared it. So a good starting point, I find, is to find a piece of content that's really relevant to something I'm writing, really relevant to something I'm doing, and then see who shared that. Because if they shared that, they may be empathetic to share my content. So if I click view sharers here, I'll then get a list like this. So people who shared that article, and then I can resort them by retweets or other things. I can export that whole list to put them into my CRM, or I might just want to follow them on Twitter or reach out to them on Twitter to share my content if they shared something that was really relevant. So one first way is just to find who shared popular content, because they're helping to amplify that content. The other thing is obviously to find authors of popular content. So if we can see, an author continually writes content that gets very well shared, then maybe we need to build a relationship with that author. Maybe we just provide information, research to them for their next article. So it's still going to be their article and published on entrepreneur.com or whatever site, but we get included in that. So, find authors, maybe you can help them, maybe you can give them research, give them interesting stats, etc., to help them in what they're doing. But that's another way, because some authors have huge reach. You can search influencers by topic. I mentioned that earlier. So you can just type in a topic and you can see the influencers. And if you don't like our relevancy algorithm, you can resort by average retweets or page authority, etc. So you can search for influencers by topic, but do tailor it. So do resort, so you might want to have retweet ratio or look at average retweets, etc. Or you might be after people who are an authority in their space, so look at their page or domain authority. The other thing you could do is filter them by type. There are lots of different types of influencers, and by personal experience, I think sometimes journalists are underrated. Sometimes you might get new journalists or even intern journalists, etc., who still have access and reach. And if you can help them write a piece of content, reach out to them, that can get quite good reach. Or you can just reach out to bloggers or to companies, for example. But do filter by type. Think about the sorts of people that would be interested in amplifying your content. And as I say, journalists of specific sort of magazines or particular audiences and websites, I think are very much worth thinking about, including sort of interns as well. I think are good people to build links with, because often they're not as busy as the really big, hard, heavy hitting journalists, but they can still have reach. It's also useful sometimes to filter by location. Maybe you're going to an event and you want to hook up with people. Always nice to see people face to face. So you can find out who's based. I'm going to Boston. I'm personally off to New York tomorrow to meet some of the rest of our team. And, while I'm there, it'd be nice to meet up with some people. So do filter by location, especially if you're going to events and things like that. And cities work really well. You can put in a city and we'll show you the influencers for a topic that are based in that city. So really useful to be able to filter down by location and get to meet them face to face. Always a great thing to do. The other good thing is to search for sharers of your content. If you type in any domain in BuzzSumo, we'll show you the most shared content, but we'll also show you who shared it. So you can click on View Sharers, so you can see who's actually shared your content in the past. And we're just bringing out a new audience feature, which will allow you to just type in a domain, and we'll produce a long list for you of anyone who's ever shared content from that domain. And we'll do the same for competitors' content. So you'll just literally enter a domain, whether it's your own domain or a competitor's domain. And we've got a new feature coming out in a few weeks, which will just show you everyone who's ever shared a piece of content from that domain. That may be a good list to export or to reach out to share your content. So search for people who shared your content, search for people who share competitors' content. And then just finally, it is worth going back to Brian's original piece of work on the skyscraper technique, is to see who's linking to content, because it is a form of amplification. It's not social in this context, but see who's linking to content. And you can do that simply just by clicking View Backlinks. And there are lots of other SEO tools like Moz and SEMrush, etc., where you can also look at who's linking to content. So it doesn't have to be our tool. But do have a look at who's linking to content as well, because you might want to reach out to those people to link to your content. So that's just a very quick run through of how you might find people who might be suitable to amplify your content. But the key thing is to build the relationship with them. So we have Mr. Popularity here. So, just the first thing you don't do is you don't, immediately mail them and say, will you share my content? In my view, is it takes time, as with anything, to build a relationship. So, you follow them, you tweet and share their content. You might mention them when you share their content so they become aware that you're doing that. You might comment on their blogs and the articles that they're writing, for example. You might seek an introduction through a connection, through LinkedIn, which is obviously a platform absolutely designed to do that. You might ask to interview them for your website. Would they like to contribute something to your website? Or you're interviewing 5 experts about a topic and maybe they'll be one of them. I wouldn't do that too early. I would make sure I've been doing a month or 2 or more of just following them, getting to know them, mentioning them, etc. or maybe ultimately, maybe ask them to write a guest post for your site. The big influencers are really busy, so that may not work. But ultimately, is to collaborate on content. I suppose in the same way that we're doing here. So Playbuzz and BuzzSumo, we're collaborating on this piece of content, albeit a webinar. The piece of work we did with Moz or with Buffer recently, we collaborated. We did some joint research and we pushed it out together. And so collaboration is great, but you have to give a lot. I think if you're the smaller party in this, you have to give a lot. How can you help them? I mean, literally just say, we do this. Is there any way we could help you? So if I take BuzzSumo as an example, we have a lot of data. So, I do say to Moz and I say to lots of other people, we've got data. If you're interested in doing some research, we'll happily crunch the data for you. So if you wanted to know, like Buffer did, what can we learn from 500 million Facebook posts? We pulled 500 million posts. We crunched the data. We looked at the best times to post and those things. And then we shared it and they wrote a post about it. So that's just our case. But you may have a tool or a product that you could let them use or a service you can give them access to. So in what way can you help them? And so it's initially you've just got to think about how you can help them. And in time, in my view, that gets reciprocated. So it takes time. But what I would say is I think content amplification is absolutely key. And you need to think about it from the very beginning. If you just produce great content, you don't have an amplification strategy, I think you could struggle. And that's a shame. You spend all the time writing that content and then you just end up with not many shares out there. And our research with Moz of 1 million posts found that, I think on average, things were getting less than 10 shares. It's, if we just took content at random. So, you really want to be successful, you need an amplification strategy. So that's the sort of final point from today. Just a bit on contact details. I will go through questions. I do keep asking questions if you have questions there. But if you want to contact us, I'm just Steve at buzzsumo.com, but there's our BuzzSumo details. And if you want to contact the team at Playbuzz and Shachar and people, do contact them, or their details are here. So I'm going to have a quick look at the questions now. It's hard when you're presenting to see the questions. And then between us, we'll try and answer these. So let's go through. So it's a question for you, Shachar, first. Are there any costs for companies that want to use Playbuzz?
So good question. So our platform is completely free for companies that want to use Playbuzz for editorial use. You can log in, create your user, create a profile page customized for your company, and start creating. And we'd be really happy if you contact us if you want any further use, commercial use. Feel free to email us at publisherscommunity@playbuzz.com, and we're happy to elaborate further. But yes, it is free to use.
And there are also questions for you here, so apologies for this. But two around WordPress. Is Playbuzz available as a WordPress plugin? Will Playbuzz work with my WordPress-powered site?
So another great question. We actually have a really, really great WordPress plugin that doesn't just enable you to easily embed content into your WordPress sites. It also enables you to search for trending and highly shared content on Playbuzz and find things that are already working well and then embed them. So I would highly recommend using our WordPress plugin. And if you have any questions on that, again, feel free to contact us and we'll be happy to walk you through.
Okay. And another question I've got you. I'll go through those. Can Playbuzz quizzes be used to capture users' email?
That's a good question. Actually, that's not something that we normally do. We don't get users' emails via our items, but again, we like getting requests and adding features and working to, have our format serve the publishers that we work with. So happy to get an email from you and further discuss this. Thank you for the question.
Great. Other questions, I can pick up a couple of these. What's the difference between linking and sharing? Sharing is when we mean somebody shares something in their social feed. So they share it on Facebook. They can also, sometimes they can just like something and that will cause something to be shared in a Facebook feed, depending on settings. But they could share it on Twitter or they could share it on LinkedIn. A link is normally something that people place in a piece of web content. So I may be writing a blog post and I will put a link to an article in there. So just a very simple level in terms of differences between linking and sharing. Sharing is much easier to get shares because they're almost painless these days. You can just click a share button and share something quite quickly. Creating a link in a piece of web content is harder work. So you tend to get less links, but they're still quite powerful in terms of obviously Google rankings and SEO and those sorts of things. From Ben, is trending topic relevant for every publication? I think it depends in terms of your topic, etc. So in some areas you do get lots of trending content and it's important. I think the key is, I think for all of us, if we're content marketers, this is my view anyway, so you guys can type in and disagree. I think if you're a content marketer, you have a responsibility to know what's trending today in your area, because you're trying to write engaging content. So it seems to me you have a responsibility to know what's engaging your audience this week and today. There may be a great piece of article that someone's published today, which everyone's going mad about. I think you have a responsibility to know. So I think what I would say is it's relevant to monitor trending content or to get an alert when something is trending, which you could do with BuzzSumo and other tools. So we'll send you an alert. If you can set up an alert for a topic. The topic may be content marketing. As soon as an item gets over 1,000 shares, we'll send you an alert. Or we can do that for a competitor's site, etc. I think you do need to know, because if you can get on a trend early enough, and I think Shachar was showing some great examples there where already we were seeing Distractifying people who jumped on a piece of content that started to trend, and they jumped on that and they wrote variations and they enhanced it with a quiz, for example, or a poll, I think it was in that case. So that's a classic example of how you can jump onto something. I saw somebody do it with a quiz on the famous blue, black, gold, white dress, whatever color it was. I saw somebody said, what color is this, and do a quiz, and that went viral very quickly. It was just jumping on a trend. So I think it is important. So other practical questions. Is there a link to recording? Quite a few people have asked. We will send a link round after the webinar to those who attended and those that didn't attend. Slides, likewise, we'll send you links to those. The slides I have just put up, we're doing this on the BuzzSumo SlideShare page, but we will also send you details of where you can access the slides and the recording. Okay, one from Ben. You might want to pick this one up. My company does business in a niche space. Can social skyscraper work for me too?
Yeah, definitely. It's actually, I think, if we're looking at a niche space and niche topics, all you need to do is find what's trending on these niche topics and use the exact same technique. It doesn't have to be a topic that's widely trending and being discussed in a lot of different sites. It's actually, it's giving you more possibility to stand out and create something new and engaging in your niche space. You just need to figure out what are people talking about in this niche space, and then use. Actually, at Playbuzz.com, we see a lot of very niche types of content being used in engaging formats and becoming a lot more viral than we would expect for such a niche topic. So yeah, definitely, I think it's definitely useful, not just for widely trending, but also for more niche topics.
Okay, someone's asked why it's called the skyscraper technique, and I think the principle behind it is that when people visit a city, you normally visit one or two of the tallest buildings in a city, the really top skyscrapers, really. Very few people go and say, I want to visit the fourth highest building in a city. And it's a bit the same way with content. If you're going to compete in a space, people will share the best few pieces of content. They won't share everything. So your task is to produce something which is better than something that's out there, so or at least in the top few posts, which could be because you've written something that's more comprehensive, that's got better research behind it, that you've adopted a different format, so you're the only one that's got an interactive quiz around it or an infographic around it or something. But yeah, that's the principle, is you really have to stand out and improve upon what's gone before, is one of the ways that I interpret that. But I may get it wrong. If Brian's here, he can slap my wrists and do every way he likes, but I like to explain it in those ways. A question about BuzzSumo. So there's a question about, is there a BuzzSumo webinar? We run BuzzSumo webinars every week. There is, if you go to the BuzzSumo site, under resources, I think it's a webinars page. It's just webinars.buzzsumo.com. We run free webinars every week, but if you mail us, just steve@buzzsumo.com, we can set you up with a webinar as well. Another question on BuzzSumo, when will the Facebook tools launch, in about a month. We're just in beta testing, as you can see at the moment. It's all working, but we're just testing various things out. So yeah, look out for that. It will be within the next month or so. So a question for you, Shachar. If you embed a Playbuzz quiz to your WordPress site, will it be branded with the Playbuzz logo?
Every item that's embedded from the Playbuzz platform has a Powered by Playbuzz logo at the bottom. That's the only mention of Playbuzz. Other than that, the item will look completely natural in your website. And I see that there's another person here that's asking, does the Playbuzz content link to Playbuzz or to my own website? Once you embed a Playbuzz item into your website, all the share links will link back to your website. That's very important. So it does not link back to Playbuzz. Again, the only mention would be the Powered by Playbuzz logo at the bottom.
Okay, it's a question for me. Do you have a content amplification task list? We probably should. It's a good question. We do have some information on our knowledge base and tips on our knowledge base. And for BuzzSumo Pro customers, we have a LinkedIn group sharing tips. We've just started, but it's a good point, and we should probably produce one in terms of a content amplification task list. I think what I would say is that even at the beginning of thinking about which piece of content, I think you do need to think about how it's going to be amplified, because if no one's going to amplify it, you're really not going to get the traction you want. So I think you've got to think about that part of the process. So no, thank you. It's a good point, and we should produce one for sure. Okay. Another Playbuzz question. Are you able to tie survey answers to a customer profile?
Again, like I mentioned in the previous question, it's not something that you can do with the free version of our platform, but we're really happy to take in individual requests and see what you can do with our platform that matches your specific needs. So please email us at publisherscommunity@playbuzz.com and let's look into this.
Okay. BuzzSumo question, can we search in other language other than English in BuzzSumo? Yes, you can search in all languages. First, you can just type in a word, or on the left-hand side, there's a language filter, and you can just search for Spanish results. But we crawl the whole of the web, so you can put in a word in any language. We will find it, but you're probably best off just flipping to the language search. So you can flip it to Spanish or any other language. And likewise, you can do different domains. So you could do .fr for France, for example. So you can search just country domains, or you can search specific languages. Another Playbuzz question, how can Playbuzz be free? I think I know the answer to this, but you want to answer?
Well, whenever we get asked that question, the first thing I always say is we just don't like money. No, that's not the case, but it's free for editorial use, and when we're talking about commercial use is when we start looking into different models, and again, happy to elaborate hear the specific case in mind and elaborate further, but don't worry about us, we'll find ways to make money. So yeah. Thanks for the concern.
Sorry, no, someone's asked that, and then someone now said that was a BuzzSumo question. Yes, I was going to say we have a freemium version as well. Basically, I suppose it's our marketing, and it's also our giving back to the community. So we have a free version. You can do as many BuzzSumo searches for influencers or top content as you like, but the more advanced features cost money. So the more advanced features you pay for. We have a $99 a month plan for pro users, which is for teams of up to 5 people. But the freemium version is a bit like marketing. It's no different in a way to, I suppose, your Buffers, Hootsuite, or others, or Playbuzz, where you have a certain part of the tool which is free. And then if you want to use other features, you generally are a more commercial company, and so you're expected to pay for those. So yeah, so that's what we do. Yes, someone's saying, yes, if you want to produce a content amplification task list, really happy to look at that or do something on that. That would be good. How soon should you start influencer outreach? I think the key is it's not starting outreach for a specific piece. I think initially, obviously, you're just building relationships. But I think the earlier, the better, really. You might ask them to contribute something to your infographic or your piece. So you might actually say, look, I'm writing a piece on this. Could you recommend anything about it? I would only do that once you'd already had some relationship with them. I wouldn't do it cold, but if you've been following them for a few months and sharing stuff, etc., then I think you could say, I'm writing something, would you be interested in contributing to it? But I think you're right, as early as you can do, really, and thinking about that. I'm conscious we're now at the end of our hour, so we will need to close that. There's a question from Leanne. When we publish content on Playbuzz, is it always available for others to use, or do we have an option to keep it for ourselves? We'll make this the last question.
All right, so you definitely have an option to do that. When you create the item, you just need to go to the privacy settings of your item. It's on the right-hand column on the create page of your item, and you can decide if you want your item to be public, and then it can be featured to be embedded by all the Playbuzz network, or you can decide to have it direct link only, meaning only people who have the link will have access to this item. Of course, if you embed it, it will be available to your audience, but it cannot be embedded by others, so it's totally your decision. We do recommend getting more eyeballs on your content by sharing it with our community and getting other websites to expose their audience to your content, but again, completely your decision, and it's controllable in the create page.
Great. Well, we're at the end of our hour, so I wanted to say a big thank you to Shachar for going through all that with us, because I've learned lots, which is great. I'm always keen to learn more. I hope it's been useful and raised lots of ideas. And any questions, do mail us. You had the contact details up there, so do mail us. But thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your days. Thank you very much.
Thank you.